What up, family? It's the Bitesize Breakdown crew, and we are back with another episode of A Bigger Bite. And this time, Spielberg is back, baby. I don't say baby like that. I don't know why I said that. Spielberg is back, damn it. We are talking about Disclosure Day. Some people who have seen this, and maybe y'all haven't, have said maybe it's the third part of an Alien trilogy. Maybe some people have said this is what E.T. felt like in the theaters. Some people may say, no, y'all are crazy. This is what we're here to talk about. I am here with fellow bite-sizers Nick and Adriano. Matt may or may not be on a little later if we switch it up. But we'll start with Nick. Nick, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I just left a screening that I'm not going to get into, but I'm very excited to talk about this film.
And Adriano, you get to talk about this before doing something special tonight. What is that thing, and how do you feel?
I'm feeling good. I'm talking about this movie that I really like for seeing a little Q&A from the director, aka Daddy Spielberg himself. So I'm a little excited. A little Q&A action, not in person for the record, but I'll take it.
I don't know what's weirder, me saying baby or Adriano with the taco meat saying Daddy Spielberg.
I called him that as a joke for such a long time that it's become unironic.
Got it. Okay. Well, still, those who don't know you. Anyway, let's just get into it. Adriano, since you are going to be seeing it again later tonight, let us know your overall thoughts. How did you like the movie? How much did you like the movie? Am I going too far in saying, was this what it felt like when people watched E.T. in the theaters?
Who knows? Who knows how people felt watching E.T. in the theaters? A lot of the times these movies are like deemed what they are with time, but I can definitely tell you, I do not think this movie's flawless. It clearly isn't. It's not top tier Spielberg, but not everything can be. That's not a fair metric to talk about a filmography with such a legendary filmmaker. But like for what this movie has going against it, by the time the movie was over, I was over it. Like I was over all of the flaws, like because it had pretty much what you want from like a Spielberg epic blockbuster event, even though I wouldn't call it super action packed or anything like that, or like big in scope, but just something so profoundly human, and kind of him playing with his toys. Almost, I called it. I don't think these are similar movies, and I would even say this is a much better movie than Disclosure Day. But it's kind of like Spielberg's Irishman, where it's a late stage director, like one of the greatest of all time, playing with a genre that they were known for, even like made as famous as it is, and taking a very old age approach to it.
I'm gonna piggyback off that because at the end of the film, I was at the screening with my friend KB, and the both of us were just like, "Whoa, human." I didn't know what to like how to describe it, but somebody else also said the word human. I was like, yes, exactly what you said. There are some flaws. We might get into that a little bit, but for me, I was like, how is he finishing this? Because I am in this movie. I am so deeply interested in like the turns and the twists and the things that he's doing. How are you landing this? And when I was scared that I can't remember what exact part, but I think I was scared when the first batch of news reports were going out before Emily Blunt's character came back on and said anything, that they were just going to cut to black. And I was like, if you do that's not good. Don't end it here. Yeah. But then when they ended with her saying, listen, after the alien came up and doing all of that, then I was like, yes, just listen and end it. And that basically, that it brought the entire movie together. And so I know I started at this end, but I'm going to go with the beginning now from here. The fact that Spielberg said, I'm going to drop you in and you have no idea what's going on. Go. And you're going to learn as your characters learn. I thought that was great. I was in it from that second trying to figure out what was going on. Nick, you have a very high opinion on this.
Yeah, this is my favorite movie of the year. I think you kind of nailed it with what you just said, that I was worried that it was going to go, this is disclosure day, cut to black. It felt like it was building up to that. And I was going to be it would be like letting the air out of a balloon. It just wasn't going to land in the same way. And the film goes for about 15, 20 minutes longer, I'd say. And it is such a great decision to have done that. The best thing I can say about this film, and it's not to say I don't like this film, I like it quite a lot. I said to Adriano after the screening, because we attended it together, this movie made me feel the way that people told me Project Hail Mary was supposed to make me feel. I was just so into it, so overwhelmed with wonder, where like something like Project Hail Mary, it took until my second viewing where it landed as heavy as it needed to. But I think from performances to some of the camera work in this movie, like, dude, it's awesome. And again, don't want to kind of jump back and forth from beginning to end, but like you said, those news reports that is where I became aware of how invested I was in this, because when the fake CNN girl starts taking over everything, I was overcome with emotion in a way that I both can't explain and didn't expect. And I think that is something that when you can achieve that in a film is magic. And that is why Steven Spielberg he's able to direct with a sense of wonder that a lot of other directors can't. And I think he achieves that here. And that's why, to me, this is my favorite film of the year so far.
Yeah, the fun thing about the end, that's really it. It's, again, you get dropped in and it's intensity. You talked about the camera work. That one shot of him, like I said, who he was before, Josh O'Connor's character, coming in, and when they find him at his safe house in the farm, and him running back from when the signs come and going along the fence into the car, and it just went in and out and around as a one take. That was when I was like, yo, Spielberg is in his bag. John Williams, it might not be, again, we talk about it, it's not like a top tier score, but you hear the music going along, and I didn't know it was him. I was like, that's John Williams. That is the booms of John Williams. Easy.
Yeah, it's a very John Williams score.
And it's things like that while you're watching the individual parts and going back from here's the biggest flaw I had. We got dropped in and it was so intense, right? And then you flip to like Emily Blunt's character with Wyatt Russell, and we get a bit of a tone change. And it's kind of a drastic tone change, which is really goes from intensity and mystery to humor and personal character building. And while I like that, I was like, ooh, that tonal shift is weird, but they go back to it so quickly. That's why the end really put everything together to me, because it makes you feel something at the end. And me and my boy also recognized while those news stories was happening, where some people were like, we can't do this, we can't do that. It was nothing but Black women who continue to say, fuck all y'all, we are doing this. And I was like, yes, let's fucking go. Again, we're jumping all over the place, but I think that kind of sums up the movie, where it's the broad overall feeling that the film makes you feel by the end, before getting to the specifics, that what makes it also probably my favorite movie of the year.
Well, I think, not to push back on you too much, but I think you guys nailed it when you said at the beginning it's human. And that's why the tonal shift worked for me. This is how a Wyatt Russell style character would react to, like, what the hell's going on? You're being like, are you crazy? Is something going on with you? It must be a medical thing. Like, it can't be anything supernatural or spiritual or whatever. That's just, that doesn't compute for him. And then you have Emily Blunt, whose character is very aware of what's happening. And then you have Josh O'Connor, who knows the ins and outs of things a little bit more. And he knows what potentially is causing this. And everyone's coming at it from a different place. And that's why the tonal shift happens. But that's why it works for me. Because everyone has different pieces of the puzzle. And some people have no pieces of the puzzle. And you get to see a genuine reaction to that in this world. And I think that's one of the stronger parts of the film, actually.
Adriano?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like had the ending not like the entire back half really not stuck the landing so well, I think I'd be a little, definitely not negative by any stretch, but definitely a little more, yeah, it's good-ish, if you will. Because I do think there's some moments, I do think like Josh O'Connor's character as a whole is a bit vacuous. Like I don't think he did I don't think that character gave me a lot other than, all right, here's his ideals, here's what he wants to do. That's about it. They hint at like he was in prison, but like that's about it. Blunt, on the other hand, because you were saying like, oh, she has all forget on me. That's kind of what I liked about Blunt's character. Not honestly, her performance, who dare I say, best performance of Blunt's career. What? She. Well, I say that because she like because she like knows how goofy her character is. Like she knows that like she has to like switch to like dialects at ease, and she does it with so like effortlessly. It doesn't even come off as a performance. But like that character, that for the majority of the movie is just this like, what's going on? If anything, it's O'Connor that knows what's going on. Like he was like pretty head straight, which I think is why I found him less interesting. O'Connor's great. He always great. But yeah, like once it reaches that like moment when they're in the fake house and they're like kind of recreating their past childhood, it's like, again, not that I was disliking it, but like the pieces just started to like the negative feelings I had, like the nitpicks, if you will, started just like slowly but surely. I don't think it's like a Marty Supreme situation where I think it actually retroactively cancels it out. It's more it's too overshadowed for me to like, not getting into the movie too much. Again, they exist, but like again, the movie just starts. Like I feel like we didn't mention that the movie just starts.
Yeah, you just go.
For a second, I was like, is this like a non-linear story? Was that what we're doing? Nope, we're just thrust right into the movie, and I was like, Jesus Christ! And it never really takes its foot off the gas. And not to say it's a super fast-paced movie, but it's a chase movie. I know people like it's a lot more the post than Close Encounters in terms of Spielberg, which was not what I was expecting, but it is still it's an exciting blockbuster, even if it is still its interest as humans.
We keep saying words that work perfectly. What you said was like overshadowing, and you forgot the flaws. For me, it was the puzzle. It was puzzle pieces that while I was watching, it was like, why do we have these tone shifts? And these tone shifts are quick enough that I'm good because it was fast paced to me. And it was action packed to me. But looking at it was like, well, there's not many action scenes, but the intensity at which he is moving the story along between the dialogue and the character parts and the action set pieces and all of that. It was like in the moment, I'm like, this puzzle is weird and it doesn't seem to fit, but I'm so into it. Let me see how it ends. And all the puzzle pieces fit together when you have the whole thing as it's unraveling. And I really enjoyed that. Let's go to the performances in general. Like I do think that like Emily Blunt's character for me is also a good encapsulation of the movie, because during it I was like, man, she's goofy and weird and different, but like she's the most human of everybody. She has the biggest range of emotions of how you would react to this. And she was the one that reminded me, yo, this is Spielberg. What Spielberg does is blockbuster, wonder, and optimism. So like in the middle of it, I was like, are the aliens going to flip? I was like, no, it's Spielberg. Of course they're not going to fucking flip. We're going to have a good end. We're going to have a optimistic, hopeful ending here. And she was the conduit for that. While I love the word, because I couldn't think of it, something was a little like off with Josh O'Connor, not in a negative way, but in a, you seem disconnected, dude. You seem befuddled and weird and like, so like I can kind of see what you're talking, but again, he worked for who he was. And then I would say while like Coleman and Colin and what's the other chick's name? Houston.
Eve Houston, they
were slightly a little bit one note. I think the one notes worked for who they were supposed to be.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with those performances. I didn't have an issue with any of the performances. Just the only one that I brought up was O'Connor. I was just like, he did nothing wrong. He wasn't given a lot.
I think that everyone has a role to play and plays their role very well. Like, I think in the first half of this film, you're kind of wondering to yourself, why did they cast Coleman Domingo in this role? But as the film goes on, they give him more to do, and then you start to understand it, and then he gets like his great monologue moment. I think the unsung hero of this film, where I know, Adriano, you've always said you like subtle acting and stuff like that. I really like Colin Firth's performance in this movie. I think that he does so much more in this than people are giving him credit for. And he's may not be a heavily layered villain, but with the story that they've given him, he, like I said, whether it's the eye acting, just the subtlety, the switches from, especially when he is in that kind of trance state where he's communicating and he gets just malevolent and evil in those moments where he starts to feel like a true villain, to the moments where he gets to see his wife. Like, there's a lot to that character that actually really works and is part of the reason that the story works as well as it does.
He's an excellent foil. You know, he is the perfect antithesis to our hero, so to speak.
Yeah, Colin Firth was, you brought it up. I really, really liked the conversation between him and Coleman at the end that kind of brought together the big theme of the movie that also was something I was not expecting. Not are we alone in the universe, is what will happen if we find out we're alone in the universe, and all the moral, societal, religious, that conversation, and the not so subtle, I don't know if they're digs at religion or not digs at religion, but between Eve Houston's character and Elizabeth, whatever, I can't remember her last name. She's in a bunch of things. Randomly, she's in The Bourne Legacy as a CIA agent. That's my trivia brain. I'm sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. That conversation between her and the nun, where the nun is like, of course we're not alone in the universe. And that, I really dug, again, the overall concept of that theme. And it made Colin Firth's character even better because both sides of the argument are valid and have reasoning behind them. And that's why I think it works so well.
And that's the thing about it. If you look at this on paper, the stakes in this film is we need to let people know this thing that they don't know. And one side thinks that them having that knowledge will create pandemonium and havoc and all this terrible stuff. And the other is that the other side thinks that people deserve to know, regardless of what the outcome is. And that's why it's so much better than it is on paper, because it's that execution of Spielberg and the characters and stuff like that. Because though I just said those don't feel like heavy stakes when you think about it, the stakes feel so heavy when you're watching this film. The chase, there's so much to it because it feels so important, people getting this knowledge and the reveal that there's life on other planets. But realistically, it's just one side thinks people should know, the other side thinks people shouldn't. And it's because of the character work that feels like such a heavy reveal at the end.
Yeah, again, I mentioned before, like the fact that this has more of a vibe like All the President's Men is like very telling of where Spielberg's head is at. Like he's already dealt with the existence of aliens before. Right? This kind of brings me back to the Irishman comparison. It's almost like Spielberg acknowledging his limitations as a storyteller, especially someone like this is him fighting a white whale. You know, he's been curious about aliens his whole life, clearly. And I've seen a couple complaints saying like, oh, but they don't give us the answers. Like they pose these questions, they don't give us answers. And I'm not saying that's not true. But I also think like that was very intentional. Like almost Spielberg acknowledging who am I to say I have the answer? Like the ending is optimistic, and I think it even acknowledges itself is acknowledging that like its naivete can only exist in a movie. And I think that's why I'm why I as much as the experience itself, I was really excited by it, enjoying. It's grown on me with time because I know what's wrong with it. Like I know what its issues are, but I also like sometimes it's kind of like when I said like why Masters of the Universe worked for me and Mandalorian and Grogu is a piece of shit. One of them is sincere and the other is content. And Disclosure Day is a very sincere attempt at like an old age existential like curiosity.
Well, I mean, like, look, I am unabashedly, my favorite film of all time is Back to the Future. I think it's a perfect film. There is a clear plot hole in that film when you think too hard about it, that George and Lorraine don't recognize that their kid looks like the guy that set them up all those years ago. And it doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter, because within that story, it works. It makes sense. If it doesn't make logical sense, it makes sense within that universe. And to me, most of the things in this film made sense within that universe.
Yeah.
And
yeah, like it's a movie that just makes up its own like technology. Wanna why? It's just a movie. Fuck you. That's why.
It's sci-fi, of course. That's what all science fiction does. They make up their own technology.
I don't need an explanation. It just is.
Yeah, and going into some of what might be considered flaws, like we were talking to Q, Quentin, beforehand about it, and he kind of felt like, it felt like a cliffhanger that didn't give you answers, or like they didn't delve too deep into the themes of whether or not people should be seeing it, and they kind of just use that as a plot device, a MacGuffin, to just move things along. Like I didn't feel like it was a cliffhanger at the end. I also thought like, just listen. I think this is going to be low key a divisive film. I think there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to be vibing with this, and there are going to be a lot of people like us who are going to be like, the movie ended with the words "listen," because we should be listening to each other. Like this is very, very, as a lot of the art right now is, a mirror of the time of like, we should be listening. I think one of the people from my screening was looking at me when I said I was really enjoying this. He was like, "What movie did you watch?" And I was like, "What was the issue?" He was like, "What should we be listening to?"
Each other.
What do you mean? Like, whatever it is you think we should be listening to as a society, to each other. Like, so what were some of those flaws you could clearly see that, like, yes, we've talked about, like, of course, it's puzzle pieces that fit together and why it works. But yeah, there's some things about the movie that like could have been better.
I mean, there's a couple, like, I have some pretty some of them are very superficial. Like, some of the dialogue is very exposition. Like, I remember the line where Wyatt Russell's like, "You think this could have something to do with your mysterious childhood trauma?" I was like, all right, subtle. Something like that. I think the cinematography, for the most part, is absolutely excellent. But there was, like, a shot or two where I was like, Russo brothers. But otherwise, but again, those are, like, very superficial reasons. Like, that's not enough to dislike a movie outright. And again, I'm not even close to disliking. If I were to say the movie, I would say there's a bit of an issue. Again, I would just say that I don't think it reaches. I think it was aiming for something a little higher that it didn't quite go. I think it shot high, but it was aiming for something a little higher. And what I mean by that is I don't think all of the character work is spotless. I think there is something that comes with an issue of a movie that poses questions, and as much as it's the point to not answer it, it is a little unsatisfying. Like, the one thing I always think of is the religious angle of this movie and what it's aiming for with, like, the religious angle. And I just remember that, like, that scene with the nun and Eve Hewson, I just was like, that feels like too tight of a bow for what the ending is. Because how amazing the ending is. I feel like if they didn't have that conversation, then I think what it was looking for would have been a little more poignant, so to speak.
Elizabeth Marvel is the actress's name.
Yeah, that's next to New York. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a particularly religious person, so I don't know if this is true, but I think they kind of hammer that home when they quote Genesis. And they say that it doesn't limit it to people on this planet, to people on this plane.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's an important line in the film.
To that, I say I think that's a little too literal of, like, an answer from Spielberg, as opposed to his much more hypotheticals. which I think are a lot more effective.
Well, I think, I think it's the sum are better than its parts, where when we get the little by little like understanding of who Jane was, I'm actually looking up the character names now, Eve Houston's character, where you start with like, oh, you used to be a nun. Why did you used to be a nun? And then they have the second conversation that, yes, you could have definitely dove deeper into it. We didn't really get too many answers about that, but then they start having that conversation about, do you believe in life on Earth? Because they move over to, she initially thinks that no, we cannot have this play out. We cannot, it would be pandemonium. And then like the slow little bits and pieces. I think for me, those are the flaws where you could definitely have delved deeper into her character. You could have definitely delved deeper into Coleman Domingo, Hugo. You could have kind of figured out a little bit more between him and, I'm again looking at the character names now, and Noah Scanlon, Colin Firth's character. You could have delved deeper a little bit more into their relationship. But the way that, again, they drop you in with the wrestling footsteps in your face, and you're like, what the fuck is this? What am I watching? And again, I think the story aspect is a little bit more important than the characters and all. And I think, I think what Spielberg is saying is, you have these characters, you don't need to know about all of them. You just need to know that they're human, and the story of everything could be the reason why you forgive the not so deep characters, because the way we reveal little things here and there about everybody, you're not going to know everything about everybody, but you're going to understand enough where they come from and understand why the story is so important as you get pieces over the 2 hour and 20 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the lead actor in this film is Emily Blunt, but the lead character in this film is humanity as a whole. And that's where I talked about the characters kind of show you every facet of how you would react to that thing. But even just the little interactions that Emily Blunt has when she kind of does her fortune telling, when she tells the person that it's time to leave their abusive situation, and moments like that, that is where it feels like the lead character of this film is humanity as a whole. And it's a very hopeful message that Spielberg is going for in a time where hope is, like you said, mirroring society. Hope is a little hard to come by for a lot of people right now. And he uses the life on other planets. Like, let's not forget, the world is in quite a bit of turmoil at the beginning of this film. And this works as a...
World War III is like imminent in this movie.
Yes. So this works as a catalyst for hope. And I think it's very important that he does that. And he uses things like religion, and he uses all the different aspects of the characters to make that hope feel realistic, which is why when you do get the reveal, and why Eve Houston's character, Jane, why she kind of transitions the way she thinks about it by the end, why everyone kind of comes to terms with this could be a good thing. And then it eventually is. And that's where I don't feel like it's a cliffhanger. I feel like this film ends with a sense of hope. Like you said, Brew, with listen. And I think if we had a lot more listening, we'd be able to avoid a lot more of the conflict in this world. And I think that's a message that Spielberg's trying to get across here.
And I also think it was another great choice to not focus on World War III. Just put it as a backdrop.
It's just happening.
It's just happening, yo. It is happening.
Just like Surratt.
Yeah, fuck you.
I'm not wrong.
Anyway, you are not wrong. No. Just one, we're living in a time where everybody think World War III or the next Civil War in America is happening again. I don't. But anyway, just having it there in the background, you don't need to know about it. You don't need to know about how those conflicts started. You just need to know that that is what we're living in right now and why all of this is so much more important.
It's not even not knowing about it, Brew. It's that they make it clear it's happening, and they also make it clear to show you that life is kind of going on as normal. It's not this post-apocalyptic Children of Men style world. It is, we're on the verge of World War III, and people are either oblivious to it or they're just kind of living their lives as is. And I think that's such a really good decision making by Spielberg here, that it makes it almost feel more realistic, because in our time right now, there's a lot of stuff going on. At times we have felt like we are on the verge of World War III, and like people are scared about certain things, but life is still going on as usual. People go to their day jobs. People take their kids to the park, all this kind of stuff. Like, it's still life as we know it. And I think it was really important and something you don't get that often in film, to show that that is how the world is here, even if we are kind of on the verge of a world war.
I just know, for me, my last thoughts on this is, like with everything we talked about, it probably is my favorite movie of the year. It's between that and the drama, and for completely different reasons than the drama, than all the movies I've really enjoyed. One, I was not expecting this. Like, the trailers don't give much away. It was like, I'm going in, I'm watching a Spielberg film, and I did not expect to just kind of feel speechless and hopeful and like, wow, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, this is kind of makes you think about a lot of things. And that is what I took away from, like, yo, I love movies that aren't perfect, but that are amazing. Like, I also love those kind of movies where you don't have to be the most, you can have things that don't make sense sometimes, or have characters that aren't the most three-dimensional, but everything works so well together and leaves you thinking about it by the end of the film. Those are my favorite kind of films. So, Adriano, I'm going to go to you. Final thoughts on the film. Anything else we didn't bring up that you want to talk about?
I really like, just a little detail that I really liked is, which I think ties into, because it's something that Nick said, which was the main character is humanity, and I don't think that's untrue. But I also think part of the main character is the truth, is how human beings react to truths they just either don't want to hear or didn't know they wanted to hear. Which kind of like is like the moments that Emily Blunt's just telling people outright, like, hey, this is what you gotta do. This is how your kid feels about you, and this is how you fix it. And you like the cop at the beginning, he's just like in awe and like almost shaking. And obviously, part of it is like, how the fuck does this lady know? But also like, I don't like hearing that.
Spielberg going back to his Minority Report days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is why when you said it was a trilogy, I was like, oh, that's actually a quadrilogy. E.T., Close Encounters, Minority Report, and this one, or War of the Worlds. I mean, but to sum up my thoughts, I would prefer a movie with superficial issues than a movie that really just isn't confident in itself, I guess, so to speak. This movie really trusts its audiences, and hey, maybe not all audiences are vibing with it, which I get it in the sense that, like, all right, it is purposefully withholding stuff. But again, this is not top tier Spielberg by any stretch, but it is still a very effective, like, it's a chase movie. We didn't even talk about that awesome train sequence. It's a chase movie. It's a, almost like a political conspiracy thriller. And like the best Spielberg stuff, he just has this weird blind-eyed cinematic optimism. Like, he knows that his optimism is naive. He doesn't care. You're watching a movie, and that's why he's like, I would argue, like, if we like, from an objective standpoint, the greatest director of all time. Like, not my favorite of all time, not your favorite of all time, maybe, but just one of the great cinematic movie makers.
100%.
Yeah, Adriano kind of stole my thunder, but bringing up the train sequence there. But yeah, that's a great sequence. I did just want to make sure we shouted that out. I know you keep making the comparison to The Post. To me, yeah, I don't know if evolution is the right word, but this is Spielberg doing an homage to previous Spielberg, but finding ways to grow within it. So there's a little bit of the Fabelmans. There's also a little bit of Raiders. Like, there is all these different aspects. There's a little bit of Close Encounters, of course. And it feels like when we talk about so many directors, and whether it's your Ridley Scotts, your Martin Scorsese's, whoever is of an older generation and still making films to varying degrees, it feels like this is, I don't want to say growth from Spielberg, but similar to Fabelmans. Like, it does feel like he has a little bit more new in the tank than I think a lot of us realized. And even though this feels like it's probably the end to his Alien filmmaking, I could see this being the conclusion of that, similar to how Guillermo del Toro said that Frankenstein is kind of his creature feature finale. I'm excited for what comes next, which is so strange to say for such a seasoned director, but I'm still excited for a Spielberg film. And when we talk about whether it's the modern names like Ari Aster and Denis Villeneuve and things like that, or the Tarantinos, the Scorseses, I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten how good Spielberg is when he's at his Spielbergiest. And I think this film should remind people of that. And I really hope people go and see it. And I really hope that a lot of people love it. And I hope that a lot of people take a lot from it. I'm thrilled with this film. I was just so happy to see it.
100%. I absolutely adored it. And I think this weekend at the movies, I wasn't going to go this weekend with this show without mentioning you get Disclosure Day and you get The Furious in the same weekend. Go watch both of them and have a good ass time.
You also watch the
and or like me, watch Obsession for the first time. I will eventually get to it. But I hope you had a good ass time with us. Appreciate you coming. Go to bitesizebreakdown.com. See our actual full thoughts, full bite-sized thoughts from everybody on the crew who saw it over there. Go watch other Bigger Bite episodes that we have up on the channel right now and all the other things that we do on all our socials, IG. We don't have to say talk anymore. Facebook, Twitter, or as he calls it, that other thing. But anyway, for Nick, for Adriano, and for Matt, who would have wanted to be here, but hey, you'll see him next time, and you'll see us next time. Peace.